Hi, welcome to Virtually Sunday from Whatsoever You Do Incorporated. My name is Tony Pickler, and I'm the Mission Outreach Director for Resurrection Parish in Green Bay. When I was in grade school at St. Thomas Catholic School in Eau Claire, our 8th grade class went through 8 teachers. You heard that correctly. You don't need a bell tone hearing checkup. 8 teachers. These were the days when you stayed with one teacher all day long, so we literally went through almost a teacher a month. We had a teacher who was a former DJ who thought he'd try his hand at teaching. We had a teacher who would love to sit on the bar stool every day after school. And of course, then the next day, dealing with his hangover wasn't the greatest thing going for us as a class. We even had a teacher who had left the circus and went into teaching our class. The day he displayed in gym class how to eat fire is something I remember like it happened yesterday. This unruly bunch of 14-year-olds needed a little more structure. We needed a little more authority. Well, we graduated in the spring of that year, really receiving neither of those. There's a great scene in season 2 of The Chosen, the popular series from Angel Studios. Peter and Jesus are walking along a road discussing the growing band of Jesus' followers. And the conversation went something like this. Peter says to Jesus, "Rabbi, I've been thinking, because I think a lot." And Jesus replies, "I thought you kind of reacted from your heart a little more than your head." Peter says, "Well, I have been thinking. The group's growing every day, and with greater numbers come more opinions and perspectives. But we're all unified. But sometimes you're away and we don't have your authority to refer to." And Jesus replies, "You have my instructions." But then Peter comes back at him. "I'm suggesting we formalize a structure for how decisions are made and plans are finalized." Well, Jesus says, "Peter, I appreciate how you're trying to make things better for the group. You're a leader and you always have been. I cherish that in you and will need that in time. One day there will be need to be more structure, and I see you playing a big part in that." And Peter says, "Why not now? Why not more structure today?" And Jesus finally replies, "Because I'm still here." In the passage from the Gospel of St. Matthew for this weekend, we have that familiar reading that occurs at Caesarea Philippi, an outpost north of the Sea of Galilee, which was a hotbed for pagan religions. Interestingly enough, it's here that Jesus questions his followers about his own identity. And we know that most of the disciples gave a bunch of other answers. One person said, "I think you're John the Baptist." Another said, "I think you're Elijah." And one of the others said, "I think you're one of the prophets." But it's Peter who gets the correct answer in this school of learning of Jesus. He answers that Jesus is the Messiah, the anointed one, the Christ, the Son of the living God. And then it's here where Jesus changes Peter's name from Simon to Peter, meaning rock. And it was on this rock that Jesus would build his church. Well, there's just one thing to keep in mind about this passage, and that is that Matthew's writing about 45 to even 50 years after Jesus' death and resurrection. And most likely, it's written long after Peter's own death. The community, a Jewish Christian community in this case, has lived as a group for decades. They lived in community. And a certain structure, a necessary authority placed in the hands of certain leaders was already their reality. So Matthew is seeing the faith through that lens of an authority and a structure that was already in place. But let's look at one more element of this story where Jesus is calling forth Peter's leadership. The question might be, why Peter? Let's face it, the dude had let Jesus down on more than one occasion. In fact, right after this episode in the Gospels, Jesus is calling Peter Satan and telling him to get behind Jesus. Then there are the 3 denials while Jesus is being held for questioning and enduring torture in the meantime. And it's usually Peter who's a little slow on the uptake when it comes to parables. So why him as a leader? We know from sports and other team environments that teams are only as strong as their weakest link, as their weakest member. On the football field, in the office, and yes, even in the church. Would Jesus be better off building his community of love, his civilization of mercy and peace, with the smartest, the strongest, the most popular person in his community? Probably not. Not if he wanted a strong team. It could be argued that he chose his weakest link, the guy who had struggled, had failed, and done that the most of any of the disciples. And in doing so, he knew himself intimately. He knew his strengths, he knew his weaknesses. And so Jesus chose Peter. On this rock, Jesus will build his church. Are we serving as that rock? Are we taking up the reins and leading God's people with our gifts and our talents? We have opportunities for leadership in our families, our schools, at our workplace, in community organizations, you name it. How do we handle that leadership, that authority that is given to us? If the team is only as strong as its weakest member, then we have an incredible responsibility in building the kingdom of God to use that leadership, that authority for God's purpose. If not us, who? If not now, when? Let's get leading. Now I'm going to ponder that fire-breathing exercise from 8th grade for a little longer and see how that all worked out. Have a great week. God bless you.